Hello friends! The story that we will talk about today is so unique that it had become a legend long ago and even found its way into literature. The thing is that the hero of our story is not a policeman or fireman, and not even a superhero, but rather an ordinary house cat named Homer. As you probably already guessed, the cat didn't get such a strange name because he could recite ancient Greek epics, but rather because he was blind almost from birth. I'll get ahead of myself to say that despite his physical disability, this fluffy animal had a heart so brave that it made him world famous. But friends, first things first. It happened on the streets of Miami more than 20 years ago, when a tiny kitten with a terrible eye infection found himself alone on the street. Of course, today nobody knows for certain if he was born in a dark alley to a stray cat or if he was deliberately thrown out by his owners. But one thing is for certain. Our story would not have taken place if that baby, suffering from extreme exhaustion, had not been picked up by regular passersby. We all know that cats have 9 lives. I think that homeless sick kitten used up one of them on the streets. The people who picked up the kitten took him to a vet. There, the question of whether it was better to put him down to prevent further suffering was raised. The kitten's story could have ended there, but that didn't turn out to be the case. Fortunately, there are good people in the world, and the vet responsible for the kitten made the right choice. This decision later allowed millions of people around the world to be inspired by Homer's story. The kitten's infected eyes could not be saved. But despite this, his vet, Patricia Cooley, believed that one day, some kind soul would want to adopt the poor fellow. Soon enough, a kind soul named Gwen Cooper fell in love with the tiny blind kitten at first glance. The compassionate woman took the baby in and named him Homer in honor of the blind ancient Greek poet. It is important to say that in an atmosphere of care and love, the kitten quickly recovered. In addition to Homer, 2 adult cats lived in Gwen Cooper's house. They gladly accepted him into their circle, sharing their food and their shelter. Some time passed, and the kitten began to bring his owner unforgettable emotions. He played with balls of thread and crumpled papers. He was very skilled at catching flies in the air. This can most likely be explained by the fact that due to his loss of vision, his senses of hearing and smell became more accurate. 3 years in Gwen Cooper's house flew by unnoticed. In that time, Homer turned from a frail street kitten into a handsome house cat. Of course, if it weren't for several events that took place in the year 2000, this story could have ended here. However, all this was just the prelude to everything that happened next. One night, Homer woke up because he could clearly feel the presence of a stranger in the room. The stranger rummaged through Gwen's closet unceremoniously. As you already guessed, this stranger turned out to be a robber who decided to profit from a woman who he thought to be lonely and defenseless. However, it turned out that she was far from defenseless. The criminal didn't expect that a brave cat would interfere with his plans. Homer attacked the intruder without hesitation. He continued biting and scratching him until the robber was forced to flee and leave behind not only his loot, but also his own personal belongings that later became evidence for police. Awakened by the robber's screams, Gwen saw only the silhouette of a strongly built man who was doing his best to free himself from the blind cat. The intruder, however, had no chance because the cat defended Gwen and her property so fiercely. Later, the woman and the police were so impressed by Homer, who repeatedly jumped on the criminal, that they even called him a hero. The scars that were left on the robber's face would always remind him of that incident. When the police arrived, the cat was purring quietly. His content face clearly showed that he was incredibly happy to repay Gwen's kindness with kindness. That night, Homer used his second life by surviving a fight with an armed robber. Our story should have probably ended on this dramatic note, but the list of incredible things that happened to Homer turned out to be inexhaustible. Gwen and Homer even found themselves at the epicenter of 9/11 when the Twin Towers fell near Gwen Cooper's apartment. Homer, however, did not die under the ruins of the World Trade Center. He used another one of his cat lives. The guardian angel saved the blind cat that time, which further strengthened Gwen's belief in his exclusivity. But that was not all. A few years later, Homer was in Gwen's yard when he heard a strange scream. Several minutes later, he saved a neighbor's daughter from a stray dog who attacked a defenseless child. Inspired by the acts of her brave pet, Gwen Cooper decided to dedicate a book to him. It became a bestseller almost immediately. In 2008, the French newspaper Le Figaro announced a competition dedicated to Homer's Odyssey, when Cooper's book of the same title took first place, leaving all competitors behind. A blind cat from the street who was supposed to die as a baby never dreamt of such glory. It actually turned out that he didn't only save the lives of people. It is worth noting that Homer's inspiring story contributed to an increase in adoption rates of blind cats in American families. Without knowing it, he also greatly reduced the rates of euthanasia in animal shelters. Our hero spent the next years of his life in peace and quiet, occasionally catching flies and spending lots of time in the yard, basking in the sun. It appears that he spent his retirement without any extraordinary incidents, but who knows what this mustachioed cat was up to when no one was looking. The brave cat lived until he was 16, which by cat standards is a long and happy life. After Homer passed away, his story became an example for many people. It showed them that it is possible to live happy and meaningful lives even in the face of physical disabilities. He also showed how important it is to give it all. After all, those who have brave hearts are capable of leaving an indelible mark on our lives. Take care and love your animals. Who knows, maybe your fluffy friend is the new Homer. Friends, perhaps that's all for today. Rate the video if you liked it, and see you soon. Bye.